The payoff, I think, at the end of this is enormous for fans that have really been watching Marvel. I think the payoff is huge.
We are an unusual couple, you know?
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
There's so many things that I loved about this. It so wasn't what I expected it to be, but I wonder how was it for you, like stepping into this kind of 50s sitcom era, shooting it in front of a live audience like a sitcom. It seems like it's like the least Marvel thing that would happen with a franchise. How was that for you?
It was really exciting. Marvel's taking a huge swing, and they've always been rewarded for taking, these impossibly big swings. I think it's very easy to forget what a big risk Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. were to start this whole thing. And the show starts with Wanda and Vision dropped into a sort of idyllic American suburban sitcom and starts hurtling through the decades. You'll see that Vision starts to think, wait a second, what's going on in this town? Why we're in the 70s? What's happening? And something can't be right here. And then the world that we've come to know and love, the MCU and this world as we move through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the noughts, they start to collide. And the payoff, I think, at the end of this is enormous for fans that have really been watching the Marvel.
Ooh.
I think the payoff is huge. And also, I hope it brings in, through the sort of nostalgia of those old shows that we lovingly recreated, some new fans.
Another risk that Marvel is taking here with all of that as well is we know, Marvel to be so top secret, like we get nothing. And then you're shooting in front of this like live audience. So people are seeing what's happening. And I'm like, whoa, why couldn't I have been that live? People
had to sign some very, very strict non-disclosure agreements. Yeah, that felt very weird. Actually, the whole thing felt weird. I was very nervous and dug my heels in. I didn't want to do it in front of a live studio audience. I hadn't been in front of an audience for 20 years. I was scared. And but they insisted, and we did it. And what was amazing was you really got the quality of those shows. Mm-hmm. You can feel the audience in the room. You can feel that the actors are projecting to something beyond the camera, and it was really helpful. Plus, once you'd done that, Lizzie and I and Catherine, we weren't nervous about anything anymore. Mm-hmm. We just felt fearless to really go there.
The aesthetics of the 50s, I think it was so cool. Like, it was so cool to see Elizabeth in, the kind of Donna Reed looking aesthetic, and even her voice, because the voices then were different. What was your favorite part of that aesthetic? Because you did go through the decades too with different.
I think it was really fun tracking all of those. If you start off in this with the warmth of the Dick Van Dyke Show, then you get into the Bewitched Show, and remember in the Bewitched Show, she's this super powerful witch, and he's always embarrassed by her power. He, the man, is embarrassed by his wife's power and is always telling her to suppress her power, right? And then you get into the Brady Bunch, where the Vietnam War is raging, and yet they're having this sort of idyllic life in the 70s. That I don't remember that life in the 70s. I don't know about you, and then you get into the 80s with the sort of slightly saccharine family ties, teachable moments. Tom Hanks turns up, he's the uncle, he's a bit of a drunk, and it's a teachable moment for the kids, right? And then you get into the cynicism of Malcolm in the Middle, and then the really quite cold cynicism of Modern Family. And it's really fascinating to see all of those different styles and acting styles, and studying all of those shows, and it was really fun bringing them back to life for this show.
We're in a new normal. Of course, 2020 was of a year. 2021 hasn't given us much of a reprieve yet. we're in these unprecedented times, but I'm so thankful for all the content that we're getting in whatever form that we're getting it. What do you think about this kind of new normal rollout that we're getting, and how much we are saturating the streaming services? Because I know one of the things, and it's a bit trivial, but I just miss going to the movies and going to see a big blockbuster at the movies so much.
Yes. I mean, remember, this was always pitched as a TV show and experiment. And I think that what's interesting about Marvel is that they've been sort of experimenting with breaking down what we usually expect from a movie with a 3-act structure. And in actual fact, the whole of Marvel, I suppose you could argue, has been one huge and extravagant TV exercise, because it's an episodic formula. There are spin-offs, and then those spin-offs all come together. And I've never seen that on film. It's always been on TV that sort of thing has happened. You know, we all come together for the Avengers, but there are these different franchises, and the barrier between TV and film, which has been getting more and more intangible, has really been broken through with this. This is part of the same world and the same universe. That said, I agree with you, and I miss all sorts of things. I miss restaurants. I miss pubs. I miss touching people that I'm not married to, just not in a weird way, but you know, just like, hey, how are you doing? And
right.
And I can't wait for it. And I can't wait for communal shared experiences like going to the theater and the cinema. And I believe in my bones that we will have it back.
Well, speaking of people you're married to, 20 years marks the anniversary of one of my favorite films that you worked on with your wife, Jennifer Connelly, A Beautiful Mind. That anniversary is coming up. I just wonder, I heard a little something that you actually had a crush on her even before you met her. Was that true?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, but you know, I don't think I'm alone in that. I think, you know, I mean, how old?
You're not, by the way.
I mean, what 13-year-old boy didn't have a crush on Jennifer Connelly and when they saw Labyrinth? You know, so that's, I'm afraid, and you know, at the risk of sounding like the longest, most successful stalker there has ever been, I did kind of, I was quite taken. My young 13-year-old self was, you know, she's very, was quite taken with it, yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember about being on set with her at that time?
When I first saw her at the read-through, I remember saying to myself, I've never been this close to somebody that beautiful. That's the truth. I did think that. And then I thought, I bet everybody that she's ever met, every man she's ever met has tried to flirt with her, so I'm gonna absolutely not. And instead I remember this distinctly, we talked politics, and the rest is history.
I love. Thank you for giving me a little brightness, a little hope and love on this Saturday morning. I stan that. Thank you so much, Paul. I really love this series, and I can't wait to be able to see the rest of it. So thank you so much.